My neighbor reported my dog to animal control claiming he was vicious when he'd never bitten anyone. They seized my gentle retriever and I fought for months to get him back. When her own pit bull attacked 3 children, she needed character witnesses for the hearing. My name's Luke, 32, male. I've got a golden retriever named Benny. 5 years old, sweetest damn dog you'll ever meet. The kind who'll roll on his back for belly rubs from the mailman or trot over with a toy when kids walk by just in case they want to play. Benny's not just a pet. He's my shadow. I live alone in a small house in a quiet neighborhood, and that dog is my anchor. Which is why the whole thing still feels like a nightmare. My neighbor, Karen, yes, unfortunately that's her real name, 44, female, moved in 2 years ago. At first she seemed harmless. A little loud, a little nosy, but I figured that's just suburban life. She had a pit bull named Tank. Big boy. Honestly, I didn't judge. I've known plenty of sweet pit bulls. But Tank had this edge. Bark that didn't stop. Eyes that tracked kids at the playground like he was calculating something. The kind of dog you don't trust to be off-leash. Karen was one of those people who needed to dominate every conversation. Always telling me how to trim my bushes, that my recycling bin wasn't out early enough, that Benny looked too skinny, and maybe I wasn't feeding him enough. I laughed it off because I hate drama, but there was this tension building under the surface. She always needed to have the upper hand. Then one afternoon, I got home from work and there was a yellow slip taped to my door. Animal control notice. My stomach dropped so fast I felt sick. The paper said there'd been a report of a potentially dangerous animal on my property. My brain couldn't even process it at first. Dangerous animal? Benny? Next thing I know, animal control is at my house the next morning. 2 officers, serious faces, clipboards. They said they got a complaint from a neighbor that my dog had acted aggressively and posed a threat. I stood there dumbfounded while Benny leaned against one of their legs, licking his hand. The officer didn't even smile, just wrote something down. And then they told me they had to take him. Pending investigation. That's the phrase they used, like my best friend was some criminal waiting for trial. I begged them. Swore up and down he'd never bitten, never lunged, nothing. They didn't care. Policy's policy. Benny looked back at me while they loaded him into the van, tail wagging like he thought it was some fun field trip. My chest physically hurt watching that door slam shut. I knew immediately it was Karen. No one else would have. Benny never left my yard except on leash. Never barked at kids. Never scared anyone. Karen, though? She'd been making little comments for weeks. That retriever's got a sharp look in his eyes. You never know when a dog like that might snap. She even once muttered something about liability when kids came over to pet him. The house felt like a morgue that night. His toys scattered on the floor, his empty bed by the couch. I couldn't even eat. I sat there scrolling through photos of him on my phone, this gnawing mix of rage and helplessness in my gut. I wanted to storm over to Karen's house and scream, but I knew that's what she'd want. Me looking unstable. Instead, I started making calls. Lawyers, animal control appeals, even a friend who worked at the county shelter. Everyone said the same thing. These cases take months. If a dog is labeled dangerous, it sticks. That was the night I swore 2 things. I'd get Benny back if it killed me. And Karen? She wouldn't get away with this. The first week without Benny nearly broke me. Every morning I still reached for the leash before remembering he wasn't there. Nights were worse. My house creaked in silence and I swear I kept hearing his nails clicking down the hallway. I threw myself into the appeals process. Hired a lawyer who specialized in animal cases. Cost me half my savings just to get started, but I didn't care. We dug up Benny's vet records, obedience certificates, even letters from neighbors' kids who loved playing fetch with him. All spotless. No history of aggression, no complaints, except Karen's. That's when I realized just how calculated she'd been. She didn't just file 1 complaint, she filed 3, each with slightly different wording, like she was building a case. Dog barked aggressively. Dog lunged at fence. Dog poses threat to neighborhood children. Lies stacked on top of lies. And because she'd been documenting it like she was preparing for trial, animal control took it seriously. Meanwhile, Tank, her pit bull, was running the street like it was his personal kingdom. Twice I saw him slip out of her yard and chase joggers. Another time, he cornered a delivery guy on the porch across from mine. I reported it, but Karen had this unshakable confidence. Smiled sweetly to officers, claimed people were exaggerating because of his breed. Somehow, she got away with it. The worst part? She started rubbing it in. One evening, I was pulling weeds when she strutted over in her leopard print robe, sipping wine. "How's the appeal going, Luke?" she asked, voice dripping fake sympathy. "Such a shame. Dangerous dogs usually don't get a second chance." She smiled like she'd won some game. Tank growled low behind her, straining at the leash, and she just laughed. That laugh stuck in my head for days. 3 months dragged by like years. I visited Benny every chance I got at the county shelter. He wagged his tail so hard every time he saw me that he'd knock over his water bowl. But he was changing. Thinner, more anxious. I could see the confusion in his eyes, like he couldn't understand why I kept leaving him behind. Finally, the hearing came. My lawyer laid out everything. Benny's spotless history, the kid's letters, even video from a neighbor's Ring doorbell showing Benny calmly lying in the yard while Karen's Tank barked like a maniac at him from across the fence. The board deliberated for what felt like forever, but when they finally said Benny could come home under conditional release, I almost cried. I had to put up new fencing, install warning signs, keep him leashed at all times, even though he'd never hurt a fly. It was humiliating. But Benny was back. That first night, he curled up beside me on the couch, sighing in relief, and I swore no one would ever take him from me again. Karen wasn't done, though. She hated losing. I could see it in her eyes the morning after, when I caught her staring at me from her porch, arms crossed, Tank snarling at her feet. She was planning something. I just didn't know what yet. Don't forget to subscribe. It didn't take long for Karen to crank the heat back up. 2 weeks after Benny came home, I found a note taped to my front door in big red marker. One slip-up, and he's gone for good. No signature, but I didn't need one. Her handwriting was the same loopy style I'd seen on Tank's tags. My lawyer said to document everything, so I photographed it, filed it, and tried not to let the rage eat me alive. Then came the vandalism. First, Benny's water bowl was kicked over and filled with cigarette butts. Then my mailbox got smashed in. One morning, I walked outside and found raw hamburger meat tossed over my fence. My stomach dropped. Poisoning. I rushed Benny inside and checked every bite of food, hands shaking. He was fine, but I wanted to scream. I confronted her once. Big mistake. I caught her in the driveway and asked, "Did you throw meat in my yard?" She didn't deny it. She just smirked and said, "Maybe the universe is trying to tell you something, Luke. Some dogs just aren't meant to be." Then she actually winked. Tank was straining at the leash beside her, teeth flashing, and she gave his collar slack just enough to make him lunge. I froze, Benny barking from behind me. She laughed like it was entertainment. That was the moment I realized Karen wasn't just difficult, she was dangerous. Things boiled over one Saturday afternoon. A group of neighborhood kids were playing basketball in the cul-de-sac when Tank got loose. He barreled toward them like a missile, teeth bared. Screams erupted. I dropped everything and sprinted after him. 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, went down hard when Tank bowled them over. One had a deep gash on his arm, another's leg was bleeding badly. The little girl's face was ripped open under her eye. Parents rushed out screaming, blood everywhere. Karen finally stumbled out, shrieking that the kids provoked him. Total chaos. Police arrived within minutes, ambulances too. The kids were rushed off, parents furious, everyone yelling at Karen while she sobbed dramatically, clinging to Tank like he was the victim. Officers hauled the dog away, and for once, she couldn't smile her way out of it. That night, the neighborhood was buzzing. People came up to me whispering, "Luke, you were right. That dog's been a menace." They looked at me differently now, not like the guy with the vicious retriever, but like someone who'd been warning them all along. The kicker came 3 days later. Karen knocked on my door, eyes red, voice trembling. She told me Tank was scheduled for a dangerous dog hearing. If the board labeled him vicious, he'd be put down. She begged me to speak on her behalf, to say he wasn't as bad as it looked, that the kids must have provoked him. I almost laughed in her face. This was the same woman who tried to destroy my life, who nearly got Benny killed, and now she needed me. I didn't answer her right away. I just let the silence stretch until she looked at me with real fear for the first time. That was when the idea for payback started to form. Karen didn't let up after that first knock. She was desperate. Every day for a week, she cornered me. On the porch, at the mailbox, even when I was just loading groceries into my car. She'd flip between crocodile tears and full-blown tantrums. "You don't understand, Luke. They'll kill him. He's my baby." Then, 5 minutes later, "You owe me this, after all the hell you put me through with that mutt of yours." I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just let her spiral, and that seemed to drive her insane. Meanwhile, I learned something that made my stomach turn. Those 3 kids she mauled? They weren't strangers. They lived 2 blocks over. One of the boys needed surgery to repair muscle damage in his leg. The girl would have a scar across her cheek for life. The parents were out for blood, and rightfully so. Karen, though, was on another planet. She started this campaign in the neighborhood, asking people to sign a character petition for Tank. Most slammed the door in her face. A few even cursed her out. But some people, mostly the ones who hadn't seen the attack, got sucked into her sob story. "He's misunderstood. He's protective." And of course, she came to me, repeatedly. One night, she banged on my door so hard I thought she'd break it. I opened it just enough to step outside, blocking Benny from view. She shoved a clipboard at me. "Sign it. You know Tank's not a monster. You've seen him around your dog. Tell them he's safe." I almost lost it right then. Safe. This was the same dog that tore through 3 kids like rag dolls, but instead of exploding, I played it calm. I tilted my head, looked her straight in the eye and said, "You want me to speak at the hearing?" Her face lit up like she'd won. "Yes, exactly. If you stand up for me, they'll believe it." That's when the idea crystallized. I nodded slowly. "I'll think about it." Then I shut the door in her face. Inside, Benny nudged my hand, tail wagging like he knew something was shifting. And in that moment, I decided I wasn't just going to refuse her. I was going to turn her own game against her. Because if she thought she could weaponize lies to try to destroy Benny, then I'd show her what the truth looked like, broadcast loud and clear. The hearing was in less than 2 weeks. I had just enough time to make sure Karen's world fell apart exactly the way she tried to make mine. Don't forget to subscribe. Update. Wow. I didn't expect this to blow up the way it did. I've been reading through your comments the last couple nights, and honestly, I can't thank you enough. Some of you made me laugh harder than I have in months. Whoever said I should show up at the hearing with Benny in a tiny lawyer suit? You're evil and I love it. A lot of you asked if I ever confronted Karen publicly about the poison meat and the threats. Here's the thing. I kept my mouth shut because I knew she'd spin it. That's what she's good at. Every meltdown of hers is rehearsed like she's auditioning for a soap opera. If I'd given her an audience back then, she would have flipped the script on me. But now she's the one who's cornered. To answer the biggest question, yes, the kids are okay. Physically, they'll recover, but it's bad. The little girl needed 30 stitches on her face. One boy's leg is in a brace and he'll be in PT for months. The third has nightmares. Their parents are furious and made it crystal clear at the neighborhood meeting that Karen's not welcome anywhere near their kids again. Here's where things get wild. Karen showed up to that same meeting. She actually tried to stand up in front of everyone and cry about how Tank was provoked and how people don't understand strong breeds. The room went nuclear. Parents shouted her down. Someone threw a coffee cup. She left sobbing, mascara streaks down her face, Tank's empty leash clutched in her hand like a dead man's noose. And now, the hearing is less than a week away. She came by again last night, begging me to speak for her. She actually said, "Luke, if anyone believes Tank is good, it's you. Please, you have to help me." I just smiled. Told her I'd be there, didn't say what I'd say. So yeah, I've made my decision. I'm not just refusing to help her. I'm going to tell the board everything, about the meat, the harassment, the threats, all of it. I've got the photos, the notes, even video clips from neighbors. She wanted me to be her character witness, Fine, I'll testify, but not the way she thinks. Some of you said revenge is best served cold. I'm not sure this is cold. It feels hot, white hot. But it's coming, and she won't see it until I'm standing in that room with everyone watching. I'll update again after the hearing. The day of the hearing felt like a trial. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, rows of folding chairs, a long table where the board sat like judges. Parents of the injured kids were there, stiff-backed and furious. Neighbors filled the back rows, whispering. And there was Karen, front row, dressed in a black blazer 2 sizes too small, clutching a folder of papers like it was a shield. She spotted me as I walked in and practically lit up. Gave me this look like we were teammates, like she'd already won. The hearing opened with animal control laying out the facts. 3 kids injured, eyewitness accounts, tank classified as a public danger. Then Karen got her turn. She launched into full performance mode. Voice trembling, fake tears, claiming Tank was provoked, that the kids had been taunting him, that he was protective, not aggressive. She even threw in a jab about other dogs in the neighborhood being untrustworthy, and I knew she was aiming it at Benny. Then it was my turn. The chairwoman asked if I was willing to speak. I stood up, felt every eye in the room on me. Karen actually smiled, gave me this tiny nod, like she thought I was about to save her. And I started slow. I've lived next door to Karen for 2 years. I know her dog. I know mine. I've seen the difference. Her smile widened. Then I laid it out. I told them about the vandalism, the threatening note, the raw meat tossed into my yard, photographed and time-stamped. I pulled out the photos and passed them to the board. Murmurs filled the room. Karen's face started to crack. I told them about Tank slipping loose, chasing joggers, cornering delivery guys. I even had a video clip from a neighbor's Ring camera, Tank barking, lunging at the fence while Benny just lay in the grass. The contrast was brutal. Finally, I said it plain. Benny was nearly destroyed by a false report. I fought for months to get him back because of Karen. She knew exactly what she was doing. And now, children are scarred for life because of the same dog she swore was safe. Tank isn't misunderstood. He's dangerous, and Karen knew it. The room erupted. Parents clapped. Neighbors shouted agreement. Karen? She completely lost it. Stood up shrieking, "He's lying! He's obsessed with me! He's trying to ruin my life!" She tried to lunge toward me before an officer blocked her. The board didn't deliberate long. Tank was officially deemed vicious. He'd be euthanized within the month. Karen collapsed into her chair, sobbing so hard she nearly fell off. I didn't feel joy. Not exactly. But I felt justice. I walked out of that room with Benny's leash in my hand, knowing she'd built her own gallows, and I'd only pointed it out. After the hearing, Karen's meltdown didn't stop at the courthouse. It spilled into the neighborhood like gasoline on pavement. 2 nights later, I woke up to shouting outside. Looked out my window and there she was, standing in my front yard at 2 a.m., barefoot, mascara smeared, screaming, "Murderer! You killed him!" She hurled an empty wine bottle at my porch light. It shattered, glass everywhere. Benny barked his head off until the cops arrived and dragged her home. They didn't arrest her, just gave her a warning. That was only the beginning. The next week, I came out to find my car keyed from headlight to taillight. Another day, my trash can was tipped over and smeared with what looked like old meat. Then came the flyers. She printed dozens and stuffed them into mailboxes around the block. Each one had a blurry photo of Tank and bold letters. My dog was executed because of a lie. Don't trust Luke, my last name. He's a danger to the community. It backfired. Parents were furious she was minimizing what happened to the kids. Neighbors started avoiding her completely. A few even slipped me notes of support. "We know the truth. Don't let her scare you." But Karen doesn't handle isolation well. The fewer allies she had, the more unhinged she became. She started staging little performances in her front yard whenever she knew I was outside, falling to her knees, wailing Tank's name, clutching his empty collar. Sometimes she'd scream at passing cars that they were complicit in murder. Then came the stunt that pushed everyone over the edge. She showed up at the local park during a kid's soccer game with Tank's old leash wrapped around her wrist. She started yelling about the injustice and how dogs have rights too. The parents lost it. Coaches had to escort her out while kids cried on the field. Word spread fast. She wasn't just the unstable neighbor anymore. She was the unstable neighbor. That same night, my doorbell camera caught her creeping into my yard with a hammer, trying to pry one of the "Beware of Dog" signs off my fence. I filed another police report. This time, they took it seriously. By the end of the month, Karen was served with a restraining order. She couldn't come within 100 feet of me or Benny. The look on her face when the deputy handed her the papers. It was the first time I'd ever seen her silent. But silence doesn't last long with people like her, because 2 days later, I got a notification on my phone. My doorbell camera had caught her on the sidewalk, just out of reach of the restraining orders line, staring dead at my house. No screaming, no crying, just watching. And that terrified me more than anything else. Update 2. Hey everyone, checking back in because things have gotten way crazier than I ever imagined. First off, thank you for all the messages. Some of you sent me legal advice, some of you sent memes, the one with Benny photoshopped into a judge's robe, legendary, and some of you basically said, dude, move. Trust me, I've thought about it. But this is my home, and after everything Karen pulled, I refuse to let her chase me out. A lot of you guessed she wouldn't go down quietly, and yeah, y'all nailed it. After the hearing, she's been on a full-blown downward spiral. Screaming in my yard at 2 a.m., smashing my porch light, spreading flyers calling me a murderer. It's been relentless. And before anyone asks, yes, I've documented everything. Photos, videos, police reports. My lawyer has a whole binder labeled Karen Shenanigans. The scariest part? The night she stood just outside the restraining order line, staring at my house. No screaming, no words. Just staring. For 40 minutes. If you want a visual of pure nightmare fuel, imagine walking into your kitchen at 11 p.m., glancing out the window, and seeing your unhinged neighbor standing in the street with Tank's empty leash dangling from her wrist like a trophy. The police told me that technically she wasn't violating the order since she didn't step inside the restricted distance. So they couldn't do anything. Which feels insane because I couldn't even sleep that night knowing she was out there watching. Some of you said I should install more cameras. Done. Motion sensors too. Someone suggested sprinklers set to activate when anyone steps near the fence. Tempting. But Benny would get soaked daily. And here's the kicker. People are finally starting to see her for what she is. The parents of the kids Tank attacked are pressing charges. The neighborhood watch basically told her she's banned from any community events. Even her so-called friends have gone silent. She's unraveling, and I think she knows it. I wish I could say I feel bad for her. But every time Benny curls up against me and sighs, safe and alive, I remember the raw meat in my yard, the lies she told, the months he spent locked away. She tried to destroy us. Instead, she's the one burning down her own life in front of everyone. I don't know what her next move is, but the scariest people are the ones who don't accept defeat. And Karen? She's not done. I'll keep you posted if anything else happens. For a few weeks after the restraining order, things went eerily quiet. Too quiet. No late-night screaming, no smashed lights, no flyers. Neighbors said she barely left her house except to drag the trash cans out. Honestly, I started to think maybe the fight was gone out of her. Then came the night everything boiled over. It was a Friday. I was on the couch with Benny, finally letting myself relax, when I heard pounding on the back door, so hard the glass rattled. Benny jumped up, barking like crazy. I grabbed my phone, pulled up the cameras, and there she was. Karen. Hair wild, barefoot again, hammer in one hand, Tank's collar in the other. She was screaming so loud it came through the glass. "You took him from me. You'll pay." Before I could even call 911, she started smashing the hammer against my back porch railing, splintering wood. Benny was going ballistic. She kept yelling about how Tank's blood was on my hands. At one point, she raised the hammer at my kitchen window. That's when I hit the panic button on my alarm system. The siren blared. Floodlights came on. Karen froze in the yard, eyes wide like a deer in headlights, then bolted. Police showed up minutes later. I showed them the footage. Clear as day, her trespassing, destroying property, threatening me. This time, they didn't just warn her. They cuffed her on the spot. She screamed the whole way down the block, neighbors coming out in their pajamas to watch. "I'm the victim. He's the killer. You're all sheep." It was like watching someone's mask finally crack into dust. The next morning, people knocked on my door just to check on me. Parents thanked me again for speaking up at the hearing. One older neighbor even hugged me, said, "We all owe you. She could have ruined more lives." Karen was charged with trespassing, destruction of property, and violating the restraining order. Tank was already gone. Her house sat dark for days. Rumor is she's staying with her sister across town, but no one's seen her since. Benny, meanwhile, hasn't left my side. He sleeps pressed up against me every night, like he knows it's finally safe again. For the first time in months, I feel like we can breathe. It's been 3 months since Karen's arrest, and the neighborhood feels different. Lighter. Kids play basketball in the cul-de-sac again without parents hovering like hawks. People wave when I walk Benny, and a couple of them even stop to scratch his ears like they're reminding me and themselves that he's the good one. Karen lost her house. Between fines, legal fees, and nobody wanting her around, she couldn't keep up. A for sale sign went up last month. Someone new already bought it. Word is she's living with family, but no one here cares enough to find out where. As for Tank, he was put down quietly. No protests, no drama, just gone. I didn't celebrate it, but I didn't mourn either. He wasn't born bad. He just had the worst possible owner. And in the end, her lies came crashing down on both of them. I still think about the hearing sometimes. About how she smiled at me like I was her savior, only to watch me tear down the whole story she built. That was the moment I knew I'd gotten my revenge. Not by yelling, not by fighting, but by standing in front of everyone and telling the truth she thought she could bury. She wanted a character witness, and she got one. Just not the one she expected. Benny's back to himself now. His ribs don't show anymore, his tail never stops wagging, and he's sleeping soundly again. No more pacing the house at night. He loves lying in the backyard, head on his paws, watching the world go by. Sometimes he glances at the empty porch across the fence where Karen used to stand and bark orders, and then he rolls over like he's putting it behind him too. I guess that's what closure looks like. Not fireworks, not shouting, just peace. If there's one thing I learned, it's this. People like Karen will do everything they can to twist reality until you doubt yourself. But when you hold your ground, when you document, when you refuse to play their game, eventually the mask slips. And when it does, they implode all on their own. Benny's snoring beside me as I type this. For the first time in a long time, the house feels full again. And Karen? She's just a story now.